confirmation of the agenda. Done apologies, yeah. If there are no additional items for the agenda, I'll move that it be confirmed. Seconded, Councillor Peach. Put that, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. Toitu Otago Settlers Museum Board minutes. You happy to move? Kate, you happy to second? Any discussion on that? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. That brings us to the grant subcommittee minutes of 28 June. The public part of those, I'll move that the public part, what's the resolution? That the public part be confirmed. Thank you, as a true and correct record. Seconded, Councillor Hawkins. I'll put that, any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. Which brings us to Otago Museum. Welcome, Dr. Griffin. Doesn't seem long since you were last here. Would you like to make any introductory comments, Ian? You just have to tap the, yeah, that's the one.
Okay, kia ora. I was here at the last meeting. Normally we try and synchronise our reports so that we come every other meeting, and unfortunately we got out of phase. So we're going to, so I do apologise for coming to brief you yet again in consecutive meetings. Well, our board meetings happen 4 times a year at a certain time, and this committee sometimes moves around a bit, so it's...
Apologies.
Anyway, that aside, I think the report, obviously I'll answer questions, but I think it's important that everybody realises that the museum is part of a collective partnership that's going on in Dunedin. I've just come back, it's the first day of the school holidays. We're about to enter the Cadbury's Chocolate Festival, and the Science Festival kicked off last week. And I think it's important that councillors, I'm sure you do recognise the fact that these partnerships are terribly important to the city. The museum's benefiting through its partnership with the Science Festival hugely. The Science Festival's been going now for over 10 years, and it's attracting some really big name speakers to our city. And in fact, on Friday morning, the museum's going to be hosting the Deputy Administrator of NASA, Professor of Engineering from the States, Darva Newman, and she's coming with the American Ambassador. And the fact that we can get someone of that calibre to Dunedin, I think, speaks to the strength of the partnerships in this city. And I'd like to recognise, in particular, the Science Festival for playing a huge role in helping us do what we do. I noticed on reading this report that one thing that is missing is the actual visitor numbers. And we're at the end of the financial year, and we know that we've brought in over 350,000 people to the museum this year. That's up on 306,000 last year, so we've brought in an extra 44,000 people, and that's real numbers. We've got counting systems in place now that we're confident in, and we're also delighted that over 22,000 people came through the planetarium in its first 7 months of opening, and that's 22,000 paying customers to the planetarium, so we measure that. It's a good period for the museum. We've attracted additional funding for some of our projects. The Community Trust have been generous and granted $500,000 towards the reboot of Discovery World, our science centre. And we've also been relatively successful in attracting funding from the Ministry of Business Innovation and Employment, Enterprise, MBIE, sorry, to support our science engagement work. We got over $130,000 for a programme called Far From Frozen, in which we're partnering with Antarctic New Zealand to do some programming around the science work that's going on in the Southern Hemisphere, and particularly in Antarctica. Lots of good stuff going on. Of course, I'll mention once again the fact that we won 3 awards at the Museum's Aotearoa conference this year. One for our Hakui exhibition, one for the Beautiful Science Gallery, and a third for the planetarium. So we're very excited that our colleagues recognise the work that we're doing, and we're honoured to be recognised in that way. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ian. Questions? Councillor Vandervis.
Thank you for that and for the comprehensive report. Your shop income being well ahead, is that down to more tourists, more numbers, or have you just broadened the range of things that you can sell at the shop?
It's a combination of things, actually. Firstly, the visitor numbers are up, and whenever the visitor numbers go up, you see the corresponding increase. But actually, all credit to our commercial director, Murray Bailey. We have forced people to buy tickets to the planetarium by going through the shop, and that has increased the amount of spend per customer in the shop. So a simple thing like that made a big difference. We did that when the planetarium opened, and we're seeing a benefit as a result of that. So it's a combination of at least two things that have made that happen.
Councillor Lord.
That was the exact question I was going to ask, but I will ask also, Ian, do you think there's, with the planetarium, 22,000 people in 7 months, is that above or below your expectation, or right where you thought it would be? Or
well, in our original business model, we said that we would have 25,000 through in a 12-month period.
Yeah.
So we're tracking ahead of where we thought we would be.
Now, my next question is there a sort of a ceiling where once everyone's been to 1 or 2 trips, that will sort of be the finish, or do you expect it will keep on going?
Well, the advantage of having the planetarium is that we can change the programme. So we will be changing the programmes on a regular basis. But also we've got a few tricks up our sleeve. We've got a 3D system that we haven't actually announced. Well, sort of we have announced now. But we have a 3D system that will do 3D planetarium shows as well. So we haven't actually launched that. So we're thinking over the next couple of years, we'll certainly keep the numbers up.
Yeah.
And on top of that, of course, stepping back a little bit, the planetarium does generate income for the museum, but of course it's a fantastic educational facility. And to my mind, the most important thing that we're doing is getting a large number of low decile schools through, subsidised by the Perpetual Guardian contribution.
Yeah.
So combining that with the change of programming, I'm fairly confident that we'll hitting 25,000 to 26,000 a year for at least the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Cull.
Ian, you mentioned in your report the Shanghai Natural History Museum exhibition, but it's pretty brief, and can I invite you to share some of the things you told me about the space that you've achieved there?
Yeah, we're very lucky. We went to the museum team. We weren't part of the delegation because we had to do a bunch of operational stuff, and we didn't want to bore the delegation with some of the stuff we were talking about. But we went to the Shanghai Natural History Museum and had a very productive meeting with their team, and to the extent where they've given us their prime exhibition area, and we'll have it for 6 months. This is quite exciting because you might think, why is this exciting? To my mind, having effectively a shop window for Dunedin in the most popular museum in Shanghai for a 6-month period is a real shop window on the stuff, on our beautiful environment. And I was struck today, I was walking up, on my walk from the museum to this meeting, there are quite a large number of Chinese tourists in town today. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. There's quite a large number of them. And it strikes me that having, and the theme of the exhibition is Te Waipounamu's beautiful environment seen through the eyes of Maori. It seems to me that having effectively an advert for 6 months in a large Shanghai market for this city and this part of the world is probably a good thing. The museum, we've obviously had some funding from the council towards this exhibition, which we appreciate, but we're also having conversations now with Air New Zealand and Tourism New Zealand in the hope that they too will come to the party and help us do a really good job with this exhibition, because we will be the first museum to do this kind of thing in Shanghai. And it's an exciting opportunity, I think, not just for us in terms of the cultural exchange, but also in terms of potentially exposing this region to a massive market. The Shanghai Natural History Museum gets between 4,000 and 10,000 visitors per day. That's around 2.5 million visitors a year in new money. So that's an awful lot of people who will see this and hopefully be inspired enough to want to come and visit. So I think it's a real opportunity for us, and we're going to try and make sure that we do a fantastic exhibition that does justice to this part of the world.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Griffin. Always exciting to read reports that have hit 381% of targets. For your LEOTC program, do you have any degree of surety around the ongoing funding or resourcing for that program beyond this year? That's
a very timely question. In fact, the LEOTC program that we get funded through is presently being retendered, and much like the art gallery last year, There were a few moments when the art gallery seemed to have lost its LEOTC contract. There's no surety that we will be given continuing funding. The decision will be made, I understand, by the end of this month. The proposals went in May. And while we did the best possible job in terms of our proposal, the fact is that the Department of Education have moved to a population-based funding model. So therefore, if a really top-notch proposal comes in from Auckland, then from their perspective, our region is oversupplied, so we may potentially lose, no matter how good our proposal is. I'm fairly confident that we did the best job we could, but we don't know beyond the end of this financial year whether the programme will be funded.
If I may, and that financial year is year-end?
Sorry, it's the year end. Yes, it's funded through the end of 2016.
The calendar year?
The calendar year, yes.
Thank you.
And Dr. Griffin, you guys have been involved in some conversations, haven't you, sort of about with other council-funded departments, yes, council-funded entities and council departments about LEOTC and possible synergies? Is
yes.
that right? Yeah.
Yes, we have. I mean, the issue for all of us, frankly, is that this is really important. The fact is that museum programmes offered by us, Toy and the Art Gallery and others, are incredibly important in changing lives of young people. And it frustrates all of us that, you know, this funding, I mean, my understanding is 5 years ago, our museum was getting about $200,000 a year, funding a number of teachers. This has been cut and cut and cut because of population-based funding, which I guess is understandable. Look at it from a but the young people in this area are getting worse and worse served and having less opportunity, shall we say, to come and experience this stuff. I don't know what we can do to change that. But I know for a fact, you know, the Art Gallery have got a fantastic LEOTC programme. Toy Twos is world class. I'm pretty happy with ours as well. But it seems to me that no matter how good we all are, this population-based funding model always presents challenges. Now, whether we can all come together and do something across the board, that may be the long-term solution. But at this time, that's not the way we're working. And for this particular call for proposals, we didn't really have time to put together a joint bid, even if everybody wanted to.
Yeah, great, thank you. Councillor Wiley, and then you.
Ask whether you'd like us to write the letter of complaint before they make the decision, so they don't have to change their mind.
No, let's give them time.
Ian, first off, that was a great piece or comments you made in the stuff piece on Saturday. That was shared on, Hamish McNeely put together and was shared around on multiple people on Facebook, so that was really good, and hopefully that got a good reach around the country.
Thank you.
The thing that's amazed me under your leadership and with your team is the diversity of what you're doing within the museum, like hosting the King's Formal. I know the senior nurses group from Mercy Hospital even was there on Thursday and joined the planetarium. How is that engagement working, and are you seeing, you know, good uptake on that?
Well, I think if those of you, all of you are, I think, mostly around when I was hired, we did a community engagement day when we asked everybody what they felt the museum needed to do to improve. And one of the things that we got a very clear steer on was the fact that more people felt we should be more visible in the community. And so to that end, I mean, if you read the front of the report, I'm going out to community groups probably 2 or 3 times a month, speaking to them, listening to what they have to say about the museum. I think that's terribly important. And out of that, we do get people coming through. So I think if people hear you talk about the planetarium or talk about some of the programmes, those community groups tend to come through. So from our perspective, it's been a deliberate, strategic decision that we do. You know, we're very much part of the Dunedin Otago community, and we want folks to come in and use our facility because it is for everybody. And the way you do that isn't just by putting up big posters saying we're great. Part of it is going out to the community and speaking to people and hearing what they have to say, and then hopefully making the links. And that seems to be paying off at the moment.
I just had one question, Ian, about your Tauka digitisation project. Can you talk through the extent of that and the ambitions or the end state for that?
Yes. Again, a few months ago we got a lottery grant of around $350,000 to digitise our entire collection of Maori taonga. And we've hired some assistants to do that. The aim is to make as much of it as is appropriate available online within the next 3 years. There are some cultural issues which mean that we can't necessarily make everything available online, but the plan is to make sure that that's all available for researchers to use and study as they will. But it's also terribly important because we do plan to redevelop the Tangata Whenua Gallery in the next 3 to 5 year period, and having the whole collection digitised will make that a lot easier to do. So it's quite an ambitious project. We've got over 1.5 million objects in our collection. Probably at least 20% of that is the Maori collection. So it's a small part of a much, much bigger project. But we don't have the resource. I mean, we've increased the number of people working on the collections in my time from about 6 to about 13 now. But even 13 people isn't enough to kind of digitise the whole collection in a sensible time. So if we get the Maori material digitised, the next plan will be to go through each part of our collection and apply to lottery funding to get that done. That seems to me the most effective way of doing it, recognising that there's not huge amounts of funding available for this.
Yeah, okay. And that's being done, obviously, in consultation with the various different iwi and
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And you can see in the report we've just hired a new curator Maori, Rachel Wesley, who some of you may have known as the Marae manager at Tuku. So yes, that's a project that's going ahead full steam. And if anybody does want to come around and have a visit and see some of the interesting things that are going on, I'd very much encourage you to come along, because we've got some really cool things going on. The other day, one of our natural science curators, Kane Fleury, was showing me we've got this machine now that can scan through insects, so we can make beautiful three-dimensional images of insects, and you'll start to see some of those pictures coming up online soon, and that's really cool. We've got these images of moths that are particularly beautiful, and I'm very excited about getting more of this material out there and getting, members of the public able to use it and explore it as they will. And that's the really cool thing about what's going on, I think, at the museum at the moment. There is a lot going on, but it's really focused on making our collections as accessible and as available to as many people as possible.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much for coming along.
No, thank you.
Much appreciated.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the Masters Games report, and I think Vicky and Choi. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It was moved, Councillor Hawkins, seconded Councillor Wilson, that we note the report from the museum. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. I think we just noted it. Yeah. All right. Welcome.
Hi.
Do you guys have any introductory comments you would like to make?
No, I think we're just happy the report's says everything in that, but we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Van der Vis.
There was a I thought, reasoned article in the Otago Daily Times suggesting that we need to look now at ensuring that numbers are not just maintained but increased for the future of the games. And I noticed that you've put out a survey,
Yep.
which I think is a very handy thing, and you'll get some feedback from that. But as well as responding to what's in the survey, what is it that you're looking to us for to ensure the ongoing success of the games that bring more than half of the competitors from outside of the city?
Yeah, at the moment we've got 2 plans in place. One is the survey. We're also meeting with our sports coordinators, because they're the people that are on the ground. They have the connections in the community and further afield, and they're the ones that sell the event, and that because they speak to the competitors on a daily basis. So we're calling a meeting it's either going to be August or September, John, and that to have all of our sports coordinators come in, and a lot of them have been involved in the games right from 1992 when they first started. So we want to ask them what they see would improve, and how we can help them to either build their numbers and connect with their numbers. Yeah.
Is there anything that you're looking to council for at this point?
At this point, no.
Okay.
And that hopefully something will come out of it.
Great.
And we'll come back.
Thank you. And you'll come back to us with the results of the survey?
We will, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Lord.
Yeah, look, I had a question. I noticed that you say there was about 2,300, was it, visitors, 2,347 visitors to the city this year.
Yep.
And I was quite interested when I read the notice, numbers from previous years, but is there a possibility, and I don't want to suggest something that's not happening, but is there a possibility that it has just sort of almost run its course a wee bit? I know, for example, my wife was a competitor a few years ago, and just the last couple of times she sort of dropped off and been busy with other events and that sort of stuff. And I'm just wondering, do we see pressure from other events like the Matatap and...
I do think there is an argument there for there are so many different options for people to spend their money on, and that so you are competing for that same dollar, and that the percentage of visitors to the city hasn't, with the overall numbers, hasn't decreased. So we're actually, a lot of it is we're losing our locals, and I think personally, there is so much more out there for them to spend their dollar on, and people are choosing what they spend their dollar on.
No, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just on that last comment, Vicky, is in terms of numbers of locals participating, has there ever been a plan in place, sort of like a business house challenge, so that businesses put in teams for whatever competition, but also create a bit of a competition within the business community as well? Has that been thought about?
We have tried things like that, and it's just trying to get that pick up from the local businesses. The New Zealand Police actually subsidise the registration fee for any police officers or any of them staff that want to enter the games. They do get a subsidy, so there are some businesses will pick that up, but it's just trying to get that buy-in.
Councillor Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you. Just further, I think, on Councillor Lord's point, beyond and it's around trying to get a better picture of what the landscape looks like in terms of competing demands for competitors, and beyond the survey of, is the survey surveying people who did participate, and how do we capture the people who didn't participate? So
we've done a satisfaction survey on those that competed in the 2016 event, but this survey went to, the second survey we've done has gone to competitors that attended the 2014 event, but not the 2016 event, and it was 2,500. So we were down 800 odd people, but there was 2,500 people from the 2014 event that didn't attend the 2016. So we got new people as well at our 2016 event. We had fresh numbers coming through.
And if I may, do you have a sense in that kind of, what we'll call it churn, in terms of, how many people are you retaining for each tournament? Is that a high, within the overall quantum, obviously that'll make a difference, but do you have an idea of what that looks like over the past 10 years, say, the retention rate of competitors?
Of individual numbers?
Yeah.
It's something I could work out in that year. But from that, if we lost 2,500, we gained, 1,800, yeah. So, in that time, but we can certainly go back to others.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, would be.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say that the survey is one piece of the things that we know that we need to do, but we know we need to look at what are some of the other events that are actually doing well. What are they doing that we might not be doing? If our 50 to 54-year-olds are our main target, do we need to think about pushing up the 35 to 40-year-olds? What do we need to do about that? How might we need to use some additional social media next year? We've got a whole range of things that we really need to look at. So the survey is a piece
of the information.
Councillor Wiley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at the revenue, gaming trusts obviously were big supporters of it, and it's gradually dropping off as we're seeing around town and other areas. Have you engaged with them about going forward? I know it's early stages yet, but when I see close to a 45% decrease.
Yeah, we had the gaming trust, the local ones here, we have a great relationship with, the likes of the Southern Trust, of course, Bendigo and Callis Trust, and that we do talk regularly with the likes of Lion Foundation, New Zealand Community Trust and things, but to have that one-on relationship is really difficult from afar. Yeah. So, yeah, you do what you can in that and try and get in their face and in their memories.
Cool. Have you quantified the economic impact for local sports clubs that host these events?
So we, I think there is a figure of the funds that we give back to the sports, but that's something that we're going to ask them about what else they get out of it, and I think those sports clubs need to look at what else they get out of it and see whether or not it is viable for them to continue or to grow, and see, for what they want to get out of running the Masters Games event.
Because I would think it's, I'm speaking from the golf side of it, It was always a positive day for the clubs and hosting golf events.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a financial aspect for the clubs and that, but there's also that participant aspect, so they might actually pick up new members and that their venues might be more utilised, and that, so there's other aspects apart from just that financial benefit.
Yep. Okay. Have you compared your information with Wanganui's? How are their numbers tracking? How are their dollars tracking?
Wanganui traditionally always have less numbers than Dunedin, and their figures are very similar. Drop from the
percentage.
The percentage drop from the 13 to the 15 event, and that they launched this Thursday. Financially, I haven't been told how they went for their 2015 event.
Okay.
Yeah.
April next year is the World Masters in Auckland. I would anticipate that would have an impact on Wanganui and possibly Dunedin the following year.
Hopefully a positive impact. People are
well, that was going to be
encouraging.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Councillor Bezet can answer this, if there's going to be any television coverage of the World Masters in Auckland next year, but I know the economic impact it's going to have.
They expect to have 25,000 competitors. Yes, there will certainly be television coverage. It's a huge event. It's one of the largest sporting events that's staged anywhere in the world. If you're looking at numbers, it's larger than the Olympics. So it's a huge event, and we expect to be able to leverage off that. I think with Wanganui having their games in end of January, early February, excuse me, it could have a negative effect, although some people may use it as a warm-up for the World Masters. But I would be very disappointed if we didn't have a very positive response from the World Masters in Auckland next year.
Yep. No, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you need further questions, I've got a couple. The first is, it might be more of a Joy question, but Joy, in the context of our festival and event strategy review, is this being scooped into that in any sense? Or, there's no other event that we put this much resource into. We put a bunch of resource into a bunch of other events. But I'm just wondering whether that is being considered. It's being considered in the round, as it were.
I believe that, the way that I was running it out with Tammy was that the review was of all festivals and events that the DCC ran ourselves. So the Masters Games, because it is run out of here, although under another trust, would be considered as part of the review, part of the things that we review.
Yeah, okay. Okay. That's good. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson.
just occurs to me, as I look through the list of sports you've got, which is a fabulously wide, diverse list, don't get me wrong, but considering I think there's been some fairly major changes in the population, and especially if you go to further north, you don't see quite the same European necessary balance, and the opportunity to actually start adding some other events which might be more participatory for some of our recent immigrants. And has there been any thought to adding some sports? I was up watching lacrosse in Auckland recently. You don't have that, although I know it's been fairly well established here for some time, but there's some other sports that we're not putting on here that could bring tourists down here that don't otherwise get to compete.
Yeah, I mean, we are always open for other sports, but as it's in order to have a sport enter the games, and that we need the coordinator to be able to run it, and that so we need that sport association or sports club to provide the resource to be able to do that, and then it's actually getting that out there and getting it marketed to get new competitors into that. We tried to bring a number of new sports in, like the rugby. And, you know, there's a great rugby following down here in the south, of course, but we struggled. We really, really struggled to get those numbers there and ended up calling it off, that there wasn't enough for a competition. And that's, I mean, yeah, we're always open to it, but it's just getting that support and that follow-up from the clubs to go through.
And the other question of that, obviously using the local clubs, what's lead-in time? I mean, some sports like paddleboarding, which I see as an individual sport more than an organised sport down here, but are you using your networks to encourage people to go and try something 6 months or a year ahead in order to become potential competitors?
We always try and encourage them to attend the Wanganui event as well. And
I meant locals to give it a go, those that haven't tried some of these, to have open days where people can go along, try a sport, in the thought that they may become a competitor in 6 months' time.
No, it's a great idea.
Thanks.
Great. Councillor Bizet. Well, it would be great if we had someone move it, just in terms of, yeah, you happy to move it? Yep, great. Seconded, Councillor Wilson. Thank you, far away.
Following on from what Councillor Wilson said, with trying new sports, and Vicky's already alluded to it, we are meeting with sports coordinators next month, and the idea really is to have a look at specific sports where we can grow the numbers. It's great to have small or new sports coming in. Sometimes you get a group of enthusiasts coming in, they've got 10 competitors or 20 competitors or whatever, but the Masters Games is initially set up to attract visitors to the city. And that is one of the main reasons why we run the Masters Games. So it's really important that we look at sports that will attract large numbers. And the whole idea of meeting next month would be to identify, through the sports coordinators, sports where we think we can grow the numbers significantly. Now, that's not to say that the smaller sports are going to miss out. But if you were starting off a Masters Games now, you'd never start off with 74 sports. You just wouldn't do it. You'd start off with maybe 10 or 15 sports. So we're looking at areas where we can grow the games, and they are in specific sports where we think we can get significant numbers from outside. But that's not to say we're going to, the local sports or the smaller sports are going to miss out. They will not. They are a very, very important part of the games. They make up the whole matrix, which is what the Sports Masters Games is about. But we've got to look at how we can get those numbers, and the way to do that is by identifying sports where we can grow the games.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you both very much. So I think the last public item is matters for notification. Let's check that. Yeah. Well, if there are, no, I don't imagine there are any matters for notification anyway. If not, then I'll move that we move into non-public for the reasons outlined on the order paper. Seconded, Councillor Peach. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried.